Hi, and welcome back to another edition of The Journey with Joe. Want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Camp Transformation Centers, Anaheim, Upland, and Ontario Ranch. They will get you focused on your journey for fitness. Check them out. Mr. Andrew Cruz will help whip you up. Thanks a bunch. Appreciate your support. So today we're super excited. I'm blessed to have Mr. Mario Collazo here with me from Dynamic Garage Doors. And I'm really pumped to have you here because as I told you, one of the defining moments in my life, literally in my life, 44 years of life, Mario, one of my defining moments in my life was with you.
That's a long time.
That's a long time, right? And that's a lot of interactions because I talk to a lot of people. And I don't even know if you realize like the impact that our conversation had. And I know I shared you my little letter, but just to kind of share with the audience, what I was referring to is you had reached out to me, and I don't even know how you were referred to me, to be honest, but about getting a mortgage. And we were talking and going through all of the basic mortgage questions. And, you know, I think we both have very similar personalities. We make conversation, right? Like just talking about normal stuff and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, we talked about you buying a house. And then in the conversation, you know, you mentioned that you had lost your eyesight. And I was like, what do you mean? You know, and I've done this for 20 years or so. I've never had anybody who lost their eyesight buying a house. And so I'm like, you know, what happened? And you were very open and just, you're a very open in conversations. You said, yes, you know, you gave me the basic version, right? I went in for surgery and came out and I lost my vision, and I was like blown away, right? Because you have this great spirit about you. I don't know if other people have told you that, right? But you really do have a great, magnetic spirit, right? People are attracted to you. You're easy to talk to. And so you told me that. And then in that conversation, the moment for me was you said, you know what I missed the most about having my vision? And I said, you know, what is that? And you said, I miss sitting in traffic.
I did.
You did. Of all the things, right? Like seeing the sunshine and da-da-da-da. And I said, I'm like, we're in LA. Who misses sitting in traffic? I go, sitting in traffic. And you said to me, to have the ability to drive, like just to be able to drive on my own and not have to depend on somebody else. I would even love to sit in traffic.
Absolutely.
And I thought, man, like here we are taking all of life's things for granted, like sitting in traffic, right? Or like the sunrise or the rain or whatever it is. And this guy, of all of the things, like that was what came to your mind was, I don't care if I'm going 0 miles an hour, but just to be able to do that on my own, right? And so that really changed my perspective in a lot of things that I look at in life, Mario. And so that's why I say it was one of those defining moments because, you know, it really was a dose of perspective for me. Right, it really, really was. So thank you for giving me that and sharing that with me because it's really helped me even from that conversation. It was probably 5-6 years ago, maybe.
It's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while, right? Since you bought that house in Palm Springs, and you've since bought it, remodeled it, sold it.
Yep.
Did all of that fun stuff. It's been a thing. So
it's been a journey in itself.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about that, right? So you lost your eyesight how many years ago? You said it was 7 years ago?
So 7 years ago.
7 years ago. And you're a young, handsome dude, good-looking guy. You're 41?
41, yeah.
41. So, yeah, you're prime of your life. And so you're telling me a little bit about what happened, but tell me a little bit of the story and how, you know, what happened with that.
Sure. So I had glaucoma for about 17 years.
Yep.
And it had been controlled. And then in 2015 is when my ophthalmologist suggested that I should get a lensectomy to open up the fluid or the path for the vitreous in the eye to travel to the front part of the eye and prevent it from collapsing. So I went in for surgery. First I did the one eye, the right eye, and it didn't go well. Mm-hmm. So what happened is I had an inflammatory reaction to the first surgery, which caused a number of retinal detachments and cornea failures, and eventually the optic nerve died in the right eye.
Oh, wow.
So that's how it started, and then I think it was a couple of months after that they suggested that I do the left eye, expecting to have different results because the left eye was doing much better than the right eye, at least at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went into surgery, it was the same trajectory all over again. As soon as I cut into the eye, I realized something wasn't right. And again, I had the inflammatory reaction in that eye, and it caused the same thing, more retinal detachments, cornea failures.
Yeah.
And so for a period of 2 years, between 2016 and 2018, I had an excess of 18 surgeries combined in both eyes.
Oof.
And eventually, the optic nerve died in both of the eyes.
Wow. Wow. That's and so you were telling me, right, like the process of having eye surgery, it's not like you just go and say, hey, I'm going to have surgery on my eyes. Like you talk to multiple doctors, multiple specialists, right? Like you said, you're not just walking into some clinic in Santa Ana and saying, hey, can you help me with my eye, right? Like it's a process. So even though it was 2 years of surgery, there was years of getting to the point of having surgery, right? And going through that process too.
Oh, absolutely.
You
And this was with a reputable university where I went, and these were top-notch ophthalmologists,
Yeah.
all of them in their own specialty. So it was something that I didn't take that lightly, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was being advised, in my mind, by
The best
experts,
of the best.
correct?
Yeah, the best of the best. You're like, hey, we didn't just pick these people out of the yellow pages. Or I guess there's no yellow pages anymore.
Not
Yelp,
anymore.
right? Well, you didn't grab them out of Yelp, but you definitely did your homework, and there's really no no two surgeries are the same, I think is what a doctor would tell you, right? Like anything could happen at any time, but it's basically like your case was the worst case, right? Like they didn't expect that to happen at all. They expected you to get your vision back, correct?
Yeah, I think honestly they were trying to do the best for me, at least in their expert opinion. But as you're saying, not one individual is the same, and we all have different organisms and react differently to different impacts that we might have, at least to our bodies. And so, unfortunately for me, it didn't work out that well. The unfortunate part was going for the second eye. I think the first eye is forgivable,
Yeah.
but the second eye, I think, is the questionable one.
Yeah, because you had vision in the one eye, right?
Correct.
And then they encouraged you to go and get the second surgery,
Right.
and saying, well, this, you'll be better, but you had vision in that eye at
Correct.
the time, right?
Yep. I could still drive with that eye at the time.
Really? So you could have, in all actuality, just left it as it was, but you still had the glaucoma, right? There's a chance the glaucoma could have gotten worse.
Oh, absolutely. I think that was one of the fears, and one of the reasons why the surgeries were suggested was to prevent me from going blind and prolonging my vision. It turned out to do the complete opposite, but I think had I not done the surgeries, I could potentially still be seeing, maybe not as good as I used to, but it would have been a gradual loss as opposed to such a sudden loss.
Gotcha. And so it was a sudden loss, like it's complete blindness, like right away. Is that after the surgery, or was it a certain amount of time after the surgery?
So there's essentially a period of gradual loss, if that's even a thing. But right after surgery, I could no longer drive.
Oh, wow.
I could no longer go to the store or walk around by myself. I had to be with somebody.
Oh, wow.
I could bring my phone up to maybe a couple of inches away from my eye and be able to zoom in as big as I could to see somebody's face on the phone or even my text messages, things like that.
Uh-huh.
But that was short-lived. I think it was only a few months, and then eventually, when the retinal detachment started to happen, is essentially when I couldn't really see anymore.
Wow. That's so then, you have to relearn life, right?
Well, you do, right? You go into, I mean, for me, it was the way that I coped with it was ignoring the fact that I went blind, because even till now, I don't see myself as a blind person.
Yeah.
And I used to be very visual, and still I'm very visual.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing is, Joe, when you lose your eyesight, you really don't go into like a black hole. You don't see black. For me, it's I see a bunch of little flashes, like camera flashes, all over. Just imagine tiny little flashes all over.
Okay.
So it's kind of confusing sometimes too when I'm talking or I'm in a loud place like a restaurant or some sort of venue where there are plenty of people talking or walking around.
Uh-huh.
it's confusing because I'm looking at these flashes and then I'm also having all these
Audio
sounds coming in.
Yeah.
And so kind of my brain's always fighting and trying to figure things out because it's so lost and it's always trying to see.
Wow.
So I think the flashes are part of that. Is my brain trying to formulate some sort of visual for me.
Really, that's interesting because the brain is so powerful, right? We were touching on that and how it it will compensate, right? It's trying to help you put the puzzle together, right, or put the picture together, so to speak.
Right.
That's interesting. One of the things that you said to me was, that you kept working, right? So you said 18 surgeries in 2 years, which is crazy to think of that, right? Like just try to wrap your head around that. But you said you still worked quite a bit, right? Like there was no 18 months off from Mario?
I didn't take any time off. Frankly, so I would go in for surgery. I'd take that one day off for surgery, and then the follow-up visit would be the next day to take off the iPad or eye patch, I should say, and then check and see how the surgery went. So then after that, I'd be dismissed, and then I'd come straight to work.
Wow.
So no time off.
No time off. So little known fact that most people don't know about Joe Soto is Joe Soto had a lazy eye. His left eye was the lazy eye. And I had surgery on my lazy eye, years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, to straighten it out, right? So they basically tie your eye into your muscle of your eye into a knot to bring the eye back. And so I had this surgery at Kaiser. I went and had it, came home, and went to work the next day.
No.
And my wife's like, "Where are you going? They told you not to drive." And I go, "But I have one eye." And it was my left eye. So I literally had to turn my whole head around to check to see if anybody was in the next lane. But literally, like, next day I was like, "What am I going to sit here?" And I think the same kind of went for you. You were like, "If I sit here, it's not going to be good."
Oh,
right? Like
absolutely.
you had to keep your mind and your body busy, right?
Well, because the brain's such a powerful, it's such a powerful thing. It's always, and I have a monkey brain. It never stops. It keeps me awake at night. I always, it's complicated because I'm always also thinking worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But part of it is also finding a solution to the worst case scenario. So I'm always thinking about, okay, if this happens, what do I do?
Yeah.
If that happens, how do I, come out of it? So I think that's part of the reason why sometimes I can't sleep well at night.
Yeah.
And so I have to be extremely tired.
The brain keeps going.
Man, I wake up every morning. I wake up at 4 to work out in the morning, at least a couple of hours every morning. And then I come to the office. And so I'm hoping by doing that I'll be so tired by the end of the day and I'll just, drop dead. But
Crash
really.
and go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's hard when your brain keeps going, right? So a lot of people aren't wired like that. A lot of people aren't wired to where, like, they can shut it off and go out. I'm the same way, right? Like, my brain keeps going. I'm thinking about this thing, the next thing, this situation, that situation, and different stuff. And so I think it says a lot about you when you're kind of going through all of this and all of these obstacles, right? And all of these challenges and all of this unknown, right? Like, again, I'm just kind of giving you my feedback on it, right? But
sure.
You're going through all of this, but you're still running your business, right? And you're still coming to work and doing what you have to do and showing up every day, right? Because it would have been really easy to get into a situation where you didn't want to get dressed every day, right? Where you're just like, no, I'm just going to sit here and wait for the next surgery. But you didn't do that, right? Like, you kept coming into the office and doing cool stuff here that you do, and we're going to get into some of that. But speaks a lot about you, right? Where do you get that attitude from? Where do you get that work ethic from? Is that from your parents? Is that just you, like, that's just a natural thing, or did you work at that younger in life?
I think it's probably natural, but also we're a family of immigrants. We came from Mexico when I was, I think, maybe 3 years old. And so, there's always that struggle when you're moving your entire family from one country to another one where you don't speak the language. You have no real education to speak of.
Mm-hmm.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
And so I think that you get into survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of was always part of me is being in survival mode because I could see my parents working and trying to make things work.
Yeah.
And so it was never an option like, oh, we're sick, I'm staying home and, from work today. That was never an option. And even as a child, I remember my mom would tell us, oh, I have a stomachache in the morning. We'd tell her, right? And she'd be like, oh, well, you're going to school and I'd better not get a call from the school because I can't come and get you. I'm at work.
Yeah.
And if I miss work, guess what? I'm not going to make any money. And if I don't make any money, there's not going to be any food on the table.
Yep. And
So
that's like the old school way of thinking. So I think the same way, Rad. I think a lot of people don't, but that was the immigrant way, right? Like they were here and your parents did what they had to do to provide, right? My mom did a lot of the same. And they didn't make excuses, right? Like I'm sick or I have a headache or I'm tired. Like did you ever have situations where your parents were like, I'm tired, I'm not going to work? Did that ever happen growing up?
Never.
Right? Like they always showed up because they had a responsibility to go to work.
Yep. And I think that's how I operate and even, as a business owner, some people are like, oh, well, you're a business owner, you can just take whatever time off. It's like, no, you can't. You actually work a lot more. And for me personally, I have a commitment with the people that work with us.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I kept going as well through the surgeries and all the downtimes was because I know there's a group of people that are part of the team here that are loyal to me, and I owe them loyalty as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that is ingrained in you, right? Like that is learned behavior. Do you have siblings?
4.
Oh, wow. 4, 5. So there's 5 of you total?
There's 5 of us, yep.
Yeah, and so you learn that work ethic from family, right? From your parents, and they taught you how to show up every day, right? Like you have to continue to do it, and you have to continue to work hard, and you can't make excuses. And if you don't work, you don't get paid, right? You have to earn it. And I think that's what we learn from our parents, Yep. And that contributed, right? Like seeing that work ethic from your parents, you took that with you as you're going through this. You were like, I've got to show up. I owe this to my employees, my customers, myself, right? Because it's not just like I know the old Latino way, right? Is like it's a lot of pride.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, well, if I let them down, I'm letting myself down, and I can't do that. That's not an option. So I think that's super cool, and that your family instilled that in you at a young age, that you took that with you as you're going through this.
Yep.
Right? Because this could have, I always say that pressure either paralyzes you or propels you, right? Like that's something somebody told me, and I'm like, it's so true. And in this case, it still kept propelling you, which speaks volumes about who you are, my man.
Oh, absolutely. I think, and you really, I think you hit the nail right on the head with that one, because you only have 2 choices in life, right? Is you roll with the punches or you give up.
Yep.
And for me, giving up has never been an option.
No, I would agree. And it shows, right? Like this is a lot of adversity that you faced, and so you definitely kept going, keep going, and keep showing up and keep pushing forward. So it's super awesome.
Yeah, you do. And for me personally, even after losing my eyesight, I have to fight double as hard because I think people have the tendency to kind of want to isolate people who have a disability.
Yeah.
They discount your opinion. There's occasions where I'll be at a restaurant and the waitress won't even talk to me, and it's like, what? Hey, I'm right here, and so I kind of have to speak out and be like, I can order my own stuff. And by the way, my name's Mario. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, no, it's so true, right? Like you really learned a lot about your own self, other people. I mean, I'm sure some of the obstacles and things you've encountered have just been insane, right? And I wouldn't even think about something like that, right? Like the waitress at the restaurant. But you're right, because it's everywhere, So, so now you've been here 7 years. I know you've got this amazing company that we're going to talk about, which if you're not checking them on Instagram, what is it? Dynamic Garage Door?
Dynamic garage door. Just yep.
Yep, Dynamic Garage Door. You have to check them out. And so, how did you get into like? Well, I was gonna say, how did you get into the garage door business? Like, of all the things, how did
So
that happen?
that's an interesting story because both my business partner and we used to work for a competitor of ours many moons ago.
Oh, really?
And I think I was there maybe for 2 or 3 years, and then I left and I went into furniture, mainly importing furniture from all over the world, really, but mainly Europe, particularly Denmark and Germany and those European countries. And so I did that for a couple of years. I think it was during 2007, 2008, right around the last real estate bubble burst.
Yeah.
That affected everybody. So that had a negative effect on the business, and we had to move on. And so then I ended up working for a couple of other companies, including a powder coating company, a sign shop company. And mainly these were like small to mid-sized companies, which I truly enjoy working for small companies and even running my company now, because you gain so much experience and you get to talk to all sorts of people, from vendors, from customers, from having relationships with other employees and things like that. You learn a lot.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I like to continue learning, always looking for something new to learn. And every business, every company has something special about it and a special process. Mm-hmm. And we all produce an ultimate product that we ultimately should feel proud of, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And you learn a lot in building a company, right? Like I think a lot of people out there who you touched over, who want to start a company. There's lots of people who want to take that step, and some people feel like, I'm going to become self-employed and then I'll have more free time.
Right.
Like, what do you say to that person? Like that's definitely fake, right? Like that's not humanly possible.
Well, it's not, as you're saying. I think it's a little bit of a delusion to think that you're going to have all sorts of extra time, or sometimes even all that extra money, right? Because now you're responsible. Mm-hmm. You're responsible for bringing in that check every week or every other week, however it is, right?
Yeah.
And as you grow, the responsibility gets bigger and bigger. Yeah. And your commitment gets deeper and deeper with the people that work for you, because now you're responsible for all the people that work under you. Mm-hmm. And it's tough. It can be tough sometimes, but it can also be very rewarding. But it's not an easy task. It's not a responsibility that is going to give you much freedom in terms of time. Yeah. It's actually going to pull you in and drag you into a situation where you're thinking about it 100% of the time.
Yeah. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he's like, how do you balance, right? And I think, and it's hard. I feel like I have more balance in my life now than I did in the past. But in the beginning, like when you started the company, right, like it consumed a lot of your time, right? Like, and you said your brain always goes, right? Like, so it was like a full-time, like 24/7 thing for you, right? As you're getting started, it really consumed a lot of you.
It did. So in the beginning, and the way we started the company is me and my business partner together, we had $3,000.
Wow.
So we had $3,000 together. And I was really bored working for, I think I was working for a couple of companies at the time. And I'm like, I don't know, is this it? I want to do something more. I want to be able to, build something for myself and be able to provide as well, and do the things that I thought I could do better than my previous bosses. Okay. So that's how it ended up happening. So then we ended up getting together, like I said, $3,000. And at the time, we were the biggest spammers on Craigslist.
Really?
So Craigslist is really responsible for building our business.
Wow.
We would post in excess of, I believe it was between 60 and 100 posts every day. Wow. Every day. And they took a long time, because you can only post 3. At the time, you could only post 3 different posts per account. So we had multiple accounts.
Oh, really?
Yep.
And you were just posting for garage door services.
We were just doing repairs and services at the time, so
Wow.
I would do all the marketing and I'd put the ads together.
60 to 80?
Yeah.
So and that was like you guys manually doing that? You didn't have like robots or like...
No, it had to be done manually because they have the...
They would know if it's a bot.
Yeah, they would know if it's a bot and they'd cancel your accounts or bring your ads down. So every ad had to be written specifically different than the other one so
Wow.
that Craigslist wouldn't catch on to it. So we did that for a good 2 years before we actually implemented a proper marketing program.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually building up the organic presence of our website on Google and
Yeah.
doing it the proper way, I suppose.
Wow. No, I mean, listen, there's no proper way, right? Like you try everything. And I think that's something for a lot of business owners out there. Like in doing this podcast and talking to people, right? Like true entrepreneurs will do whatever it takes. So if you look at, you said 60 to 80 a week?
A day.
A day. Oh, a day.
A day.
A day. So if you look at that, right, like that is massive action, right, in order to get even just a little bit of result, right? But you knew it would take that much activity, right, like that much marketing per se to try to generate. But you were like, we need to do this in order to hit a goal.
Yes, we were diehard on Craigslist.
Yeah, you were obsessed.
Yep.
Yeah, no, and so many people out there are like, yeah, there's no way to do anything right. But that was something where you go, look, I can post for free, and people are going to see us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was it, right?
That was the goal initially when we started the company, is spend zero.
Spend zero.
Spend zero.
Marketing 101. Spend as little as possible in the beginning.
Yeah, because there's just so many marketing traps out there, Joe. I just, even I talk to other people that are starting businesses and they're like, oh, we're going to try this campaign. And I'm like thinking, you probably don't want to do that. But it's kind of hard to explain to people why you don't want to do it because they've already made up their mind that that's what they want to do and they want to put campaign dollars into it.
Yeah.
But, obviously I've had the experience all these years and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
No, I mean, that's insane. Like, just trying to wrap my head around that number of posts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of posting, multiple accounts, right? But, again, it's that whatever it takes attitude. Right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of reasons why we would do that. Number one, presence, right? And then number two was to drown out the competition.
Oh, I like it, yeah.
So
if they see you 60 times, they're not seeing me with my 3 posts.
Right, and so we had, I think we had Magic Jack numbers at the time. Are you familiar with
Yeah,
Magic
I
Jack?
remember that.
So, not that I'm promoting them, but we had, I think, like 10 different numbers.
Uh-huh.
So we looked like if we were different companies.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so interesting. How'd you come up with that idea? You saw an infomercial late at night and were like, hey.
Magic Jack, only like $30 a year or something like that?
It was like $30 a year. Yeah, it was like something ridiculously cheap. Oh, so that was smart. So you're putting ads out there, different phone numbers, different pictures.
Yes.
And so people didn't necessarily know it was Mario. They thought they were calling Joe or Joaquin or Steve.
Correct.
But they were all funneling to you.
And we would always know, right? Because we'd have the same person calling 5 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. How much for a spring change? How much for a spring change 5 times from the same person?
That's the best. That is the best. So they would call like, would the same person answer it, or would it be like you or your partner? You'd kind of alternate.
Most of the times it would be me answering because he was doing the manual work. He's more of the workforce, and I'm more of the intellectual administrative part.
Okay.
So that's why we've worked out quite well as well, is because he does the part of the business that I don't want to be involved in, or I'm not involved in, I should say. So we're kind of out of our way all the time.
Oh, that's good.
So I was mostly taking the calls, and so it was a surprise when we get the same guy.
The same guy would call the 5 different numbers asking for the same thing.
Yep.
You'd
Price shopping.
Oh my gosh, that's the best. How do I do that in loans? Can I put like 80 loan ads out there and be like,
I don't know if you can do that anymore.
No, I don't think you can.
But
I had a real estate agent who used to run ads in Craigslist back, and this was like in 2010, and he would put homes for sale. I don't think he was using different phone numbers though, but he would do pretty much the same thing, right? Like property for sale, and he would get calls off of the posts on Craigslist. And then eventually Craigslist blocked him, right? They were like, no, you can't make these posts anymore.
Right.
But you did essentially the same thing, and you were smart enough to use different accounts, or different phone numbers to make it look like different companies.
Yep. So we had different accounts and different phone numbers. So, and it was much easier. Obviously, they've gotten stronger with their filtering techniques and algorithms. So we were lucky. I don't think Craigslist is what it used to be.
No.
But, Craigslist has been a great thing for us as a business and personally over the years.
Yeah.
I've dated someone off of Craigslist.
Really?
Interestingly enough.
Wow. Yeah, that's insane.
Yep.
I think my big takeaway is like you do what you have to do, right? Like you just find a way, and you saw, hey, Craigslist. I could post on Craigslist once a day, but if I post 10, I'm going to have better results. If I 20, 30, 40, right? Like, and then you just kind of went all in on the Craigslist thing, and then that grew, and eventually that grew to the point where you're like, hey, now we have funds to have a website.
Right.
Now we have funds to do other different things. And then the business keeps growing, and now you're probably not running many Craigslist ads nowadays, are you?
Not a single one.
No. It's all mostly word of mouth or other stuff and things like that, right?
Lots of word of mouth. I think the organic, spending money on the organic portion and SEO of your website is where you want to put your dollars.
Okay.
You don't want to put them in, pay-per-click.
Yes.
Unless you want to do like a guerrilla marketing campaign.
Uh-huh.
But even that, I think it's overrated. It's overpriced.
Yeah, and it's very low conversion, right?
It's very low conversion.
So you get lots of data, but it's 99% junk.
Absolutely, and you get a lot of people who are price shopping, and because of the nature of our business, we really don't deal with a lot of price shopping.
Yeah,
we're more of a specialty house, and so it's normally whether or not we can do a certain project.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
That reels in the client.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, because you guys do some dang amazing stuff, right? Like I see some of the pictures online, and I'm like, holy cow, that's it. Like I've never felt that way about a garage door. I'll be honest, they're making garage doors look sexy, people, because you see some of these pictures, and you're like, dang, that's a nice house, like, and so it's really cool to see. I think some of it is probably dreaming stuff, right? Like you see some of these really nice houses with these fancy doors. You're like, dang, like what's that house worth? But you guys do some cool work, and not just in California, right? Like you do stuff all over the country.
All over the country and abroad.
Really?
Yes.
So where's like the furthest that you've helped with a door or a project?
I think Canada really has been the farthest in terms of countries. As I mentioned earlier, we've been to the French Virgin Islands.
Wow. I just came back from there. It was awesome.
Really?
Bahamas, yeah.
Wow.
That's
good.
Amazing.
Yeah, so we ended up shipping some doors to the French Virgin Islands, and there's not a lot of qualified labor on the island, and so they couldn't find anybody to do the installation. So they ended up flying my business partner over there so he could direct their laborers to conduct the installation.
Really?
Yep.
Dang, that's pretty cool.
That was cool. He got to be there for a whole week.
Yeah, that ain't nothing wrong with that. A little trip to the Bahamas or wherever.
And it was nice. These people had a little like a casita.
Yeah.
On the back, and with swimming pool by the beach.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's super cool. So, we're gonna take a little quick break for our sponsor. We're gonna get some water, and then we're gonna go into some more stuff with Mr. Mario. So, stay tuned.
We'll be back.
Are you looking for a new and exciting way to improve your fitness? Well, you have to join the Camp Transformation Centers in Anaheim and Ontario Ranch, because they are doing some special things over there. They are changing people's lives with great classes and a great environment and great instructors that are helping people lose weight, become more confident, become more healthy, and just live better overall. So if you're interested in changing your quality of life and learning more about starting a fitness journey, give the Camp Transformation Center a call, either Anaheim or Ontario Ranch, and start your journey towards a healthy and fulfilling life. They are amazing. You're going to love them. Give them a call. Now back to the show. And we're back here with Mario Collazo from Dynamic Garage Door, and one of the coolest people that I know. So we talked about your journey and how you started the business, right? And then obviously with your eyesight and some of the challenges that you've gone through with that. What was your biggest support system through that? Was it your mom? Was it the work? What was there to help you through that time?
That's actually a really good question. I think mainly was survival, and the mechanism that I used again was my dedication and loyalty to the people around me. Yes, my mom is around still, and she's given me quite a lot of support in terms of my personal life and getting that part of it reinvented and adjusted for my new reality.
Yeah.
Because, there's things you never think about, like your clothes and things like that, food, that it's not as easy as it used to be.
Yeah.
Like we used to be able to walk in my closet and grab whatever I needed. Now it's really hard to go in there and be like, I'm looking for this shirt and can't find it. But she's been around to help me with those things. And although they may seem minor, they're pretty major. Mm-hmm. Once you wake up in the morning and you realize you can't even pick your own clothes, I mean, that's kind of a reality check. Yeah. And those are the things we often take for granted because it's so natural. Yeah. But not anymore, at least for me. And those are the things that I now appreciate from before. Like you said earlier, driving in traffic and things like that. It's not so bad anymore. I don't think of it as such a horrible thing. Being stuck in traffic in your car with air conditioning, listening to your favorite jams, doesn't sound that bad at all to me.
No. I mean, it sounds amazing, right? when you think about it, and you perspective really hits you in the face with that sort of thing, and you always have like every time we talk, you always have this great attitude, right? You always have a smile on your face, and like I said, you definitely you light up a room, right? Which is hard to do, for any person. But I love your attitude, right? Like you don't look at it like, hey, I've lost my eyesight. Like I'm living. I still have this responsibility to my business. I have responsibility to myself, my loved ones. And so you keep going forward.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I think that's so important in life, just with any obstacles, right? I think there's so many times where people feel, that they're going through something, and it's the quote unquote end of the world, right? Like, oh, this is the worst, right? I do a lot of sales over the phone, and I call people all day long, and there's times where I'm like beat up and worn out. I don't want to make the next call, right? But making that next call is so small in comparison to what you've gone through with regards to, being able to pick out your clothes, right? Like making a call is easy, right? That's like somebody's going to tell me no. Big deal, right? But in life, I call them big rocks and little rocks.
Right.
A lot of times we feel like the little rocks are big boulders, when the truth is it's not, right? Like, like figuring out what you're like, oh, I have no clean clothes to wear. Well, that's a little rock in comparison to not being able to see what you're going to wear.
Right.
Right? Like that's just...
That you don't come out looking like a clown because you got all sorts of different colored clothes.
No, you look good. You're
good.
You're all dialed in today, my man. You're all dialed in today. So, I mean, it's a testimony to your attitude, to your actions, right? I think those are two big things that you can control and you can dictate, right? And it's showing up every day. So how do you keep your mindset really good? You said you listen to podcasts, which I think is cool that we're doing this. But like, how do you keep your mindset? How do you keep your drive going? What keeps you in the right headspace? Because I would assume you can be up and down, right? Like there's good days, there's bad days. How do you keep positive, man?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's perspective is the answer, really. And part of all the podcasts that I listen to a lot of true crime. Yeah. And so you learn about tragedy in people's lives and what it means when somebody is gone. And I mean, what can be worse than that?
Yeah.
When you have either a missing loved one that you don't even know what happened, but they're missing.
Yeah.
And how do you go on? How do you go on with something like that? Your only motivation is to someday maybe find that person, right?
Yeah.
Or if somebody was murdered in your family and you never got answers to that.
Yep.
And I mean, those are real tragedies.
Yeah.
Losing my eyesight has been a tragedy, but at the end of the day, I still, I'm alive, I'm breathing, and I have a good functioning brain.
Yeah.
And I still have a lot of perspective and hope for the future. And with advances, I hope that one day I'll be able to see again, because now they're tapping into the brain and bypassing the eyes as the vehicle for seeing.
Wow.
So with all this technological advancements that we now have, I think if there was a better time to be blind, it is now.
Wow.
Because there's just so much material you can listen to. There's podcasts, there's, YouTube.
What are your favorite podcasts? Like, what do you listen to? What are your go-to couple?
So I listen to True Crime Garage. Shout out to them.
Uh-huh.
I listen to Crime Junkie.
Okay.
Anatomy of Murder.
Okay. Do you, anything with a happy premise, or
not
you
really.
You like the mysteries, right? Like,
yeah, I think that's really what keeps me. It keeps me balanced. Is going from the terrible, the worst,
yeah,
and then being able to enjoy what I do for a living. I think those are like two complete opposites, because with what we do in the company is we're talking to people that have a lot of zest. They're very excited about working on a project, and they're beautifying their homes. They're building their dream home.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, I just listen to complete tragedy.
Yeah. See, I do the same thing with like The Bachelorette or Housewives that my wife makes me watch. Because I'm like, these people are a hot mess. At least we're not them, right, honey? She's like, I guess that's one way to look at it.
We don't have rich people problems.
We don't have rich people problems, right? But that's interesting, right? Because I was telling you I love all those narco shows and all. I guess I do the same thing, right? I watch these people do these random crimes and things happen. But that's a great perspective, because it really, like I said before, it's a dose of reality, right? You're like, hey, things are bad, but they're not that bad. I still have all of this going for me.
Yeah, because you fall somewhere in the middle. Yeah. You're not, you're not ultra wealthy, but you're also not, way at the bottom either.
Yeah. No, it makes you grateful for what you do have.
Exactly.
Right? It definitely brings gratitude. And that's a great way to look at it, right? Like it's hey, I'm not experiencing this level of tragedy. Yes, I had something tragic happen, but there's still a lot of good that I still have to be grateful for.
Well, your body is a vehicle to experience this life, and you have to enjoy it while you have it, because we don't have a lot of years.
Nope.
And I think I listen to Dr. Laura quite frequently, and one of the questions that I love that she asks people is, so what are you planning on doing between now and dead?
Oh.
Super great question. And because these are people that are calling with family issues, marriage issues, things like that. And it's like, well, you say you live in a horrible relationship. What are you doing there? You're 50, you're 60. How many more years can you take this?
Mm-hmm.
And how many more years do you think you have left between now and dead? And is this how you're going to be living the rest of your life?
Wow. Between now and dead.
Between now and dead.
That is super powerful, right? Like, think about that time frame. It's like there's a poem called The Dash. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
So it's called The Dash. It is one of my all-time favorites. And it refers to the dash on your tombstone. So I was born in 1978, right? 1970. So when I die, it's 1978 dash whatever I die. And when you go, what is that dash? Nobody's going to remember the day you were born and the day you die, but life is about that dash and what you do with that dash and what impact you make with that dash and that imprint you leave on the world with that dash. And it's one of the greatest, one of my favorite all-time poems, because it really makes you think about, like, what's my print? Like, what am I going to leave, right? What impact am I going to make? What's my dash really going to mean?
Right.
And that's, between now and dead. That's crazy. I've never thought of it.
You've never
that
thought
way.
about it from that angle, right?
No, man. And you know, the thing is, you don't know when that's going to happen.
Well, that's the other thing, right? That's kind of the open-ended part of the question is like
Yeah.
between now and then, what does that mean? Like, does that mean I'm going to live another 30 years or does that mean I'm going to be hit by a bus tonight?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know, right? God knows, and we have no idea what's going to happen. But that's why you have to really appreciate every day, because tomorrow's not guaranteed.
It's not.
You know, and so, I believe, I'm a big believer in that. I used to tell everybody that you have to make it great. And people my friends used to give me a hard time. They'd be like, make it great. Joe Soto, make it great. And I'd be like, hey, man, you only have today, right? Like, you have to make today great, because you might not be here tomorrow, right? So you have one option. Let's live today. Let's make it great. And let's help other people, right? And so, like, my friend, literally, they would literally clown on me. Damn you friends who used to clown on me. But now they realize, they're like, dude, he actually made a lot of sense back then, you know, because you only get today, man. Like, tomorrow we don't know.
Like, you have to snap out of it and somehow and realize where you really are and what things can you really do with what very little time you have available.
Yeah. No, it's super. I love that, man. I love how your perspective and how you have a grasp on all of that, right? Because it's super important to have that gratitude and continue to take every day, you know,
and acknowledge that, we're really lucky. We're privileged to be where we're at.
100%. I mean, hey, we live in a beautiful country. Your parents migrated probably from nothing. Right. And now look, we're sitting here, we're recording, we're sharing your story, we're touching the world, right? Like, they're hardworking. You got, like, dude, life's pretty good, A lot of people, one of my other favorite lines is, a lot of people have it a lot worse than I do.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, my stuff is hard, but there's people in third world countries and places that they would trade their life for Mario's tomorrow. Today,
Oh, yeah.
like right now, they'd be like, oh, can I switch with Mario? Can I switch with Joe? And so you have to remember that, right? That helps me a lot, because I'm like, all right, my life's not really that bad.
Well, there's just so much turbulence in the world and so much displacement. I can't remember the number of people that are displaced all over the world. They lost everything.
Yeah.
And they don't have a place to call home.
Nope.
They don't know where their next meal is going to come from.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know if they're going to be alive tomorrow.
Yeah. No, it's definitely powerful stuff, man. So, shifting gears, we were talking off air about some of the stuff you do with dynamic garage doors, and so I asked you, what was the most expensive garage door that you've ever installed, right? And so, to give a little bit of background, like, your stuff's 100% custom. It's made for custom homes. Like, it's literally not out of the box stuff. And so, I pretty much had a heart attack when my wife wanted to paint our garage door, and it was like $1,000 or whatever it was. So now I'm going to come back and ask you, Mario, what was the most expensive garage door that you guys have ever installed?
That's a good question. So thus far, the most expensive door we've done was $120,000.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. That's a lot of money coming from the guy who didn't want to paint his garage door, okay? That's crazy. And so where was that property? Was that like Newport Coast or Paris or where was that at?
Well, surprisingly enough, this was in Bakersfield, California.
Yeah, shout out to Bakersfield, California, home of the most expensive garage door in Bakersfield.
Word.
Oh, wow. That is insane, right? Like, when you told me that, I was like, Bakersfield? Like, somebody built a house that crazy in Bakersfield. But yes, right? Like,
yeah, and I remember quoting that job, and Joe, I was like, I don't know, this doesn't make any sense. How? Because I was adding up materials and labor and all that stuff, and I'm like, it can't be.
Wow.
But, at the end of the day, I'm like, well, if we do this door, we're not going to do it for free.
Yeah.
So, and we're definitely not going to do it at a loss.
Yeah.
So I sent my quote out, and I think it was a couple of days later they sent their approval.
Wow. That's insane.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's crazy stuff. And it's just, my takeaways from that are like, I can't imagine what the house cost. Was my first thought, right? Was like, if you spent 120 grand on the doors, because I'm assuming it's not like a 1-car garage, right? Like it was multiple doors.
It was a pretty large door. It was 40 feet wide
Wow.
and 20 foot tall.
Jeez. Okay. Yeah, it's a monster.
It was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, I'm like, dang, that house must have been massive. But it's interesting to me to see if somebody's spending that much money on a door, right? Like, how much money are they making? What are they worth, right? Like, I look at it as like, man, like somebody's in a financial state where they go, yeah, 120 for a door. That's cool, right? Like, that's baller money. Like, that's
just a garage door too.
That's just the garage door. Right? Like, that's not the rest, because it was a custom house, I'm assuming.
Right.
Dang.
I can't, for me, I can't fathom or quantify the level of wealth some people have.
Yeah.
But of course, all that also comes with a price to them, right? And
Yeah.
because it's easy to say, oh, I wish I had that life, or, this is what I would do if I had that much money. And it's like, well, it's like we said earlier, everybody has problems, right?
Yep.
If you're ultra wealthy, you don't know if you're going to drive your red Ferrari or your yellow Ferrari. And that can be a challenge.
That could be a challenge.
That can be a challenge.
Yeah. Some people have crazy, I mean, you've probably seen some insane, like, crazy houses and people that are spending on stuff. It's.
Oh, Joe, exquisite. That's what I miss the most about, having lost my eyesight, is having the opportunity to go to some of these homes and being able to see the level of luxury and beauty that these people put into their homes. Every home is like an extension of the individual. Mm-hmm. And so you learn a lot from just, stepping into their home and realizing, wow.
Yeah. It's amazing the way people, like, again, the homes and the way people live, and it's a testament to how hard they work, right? And it's never really super easy, but I'm blown away, man. I see these shows and these properties. I'm like, dang, what did that person do for a living to buy that $20 million house, right? Like, I don't know. It's like you said, the level of...
Well, perspective, how much is property tax on a $20 million house?
They don't care about property taxes. They have boats and stuff. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think it's interesting how different businesses deal with different demographics of people and stuff like that, right? Like, I interviewed a guy who has a food bank, right? Like, they make food for the homeless, and like, that's the complete opposite end of it, right? Like, it's people who can't even, they don't even have their next meal.
Right.
Right. So, hey, it's not a bad thing. It's just different. Right.
But you know what? That's also, everything's rewarding. Again, we keep going back to perspective. It's how you look at it. I think there's beauty in that as well, right? There's fulfillment in doing that as well, and being able to help others during their worst times, possibly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of homelessness, particularly in certain areas. Santa Ana is notorious for that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just wondering, these people are somebody's child, somebody's brother, son, whatever you may call it, and they're out there in the street, and maybe they have mental problems. Mm-hmm. That's a big one right now. It's totally. Like, it's sad because you think about them and you're like, wow, these people are someone.
Yeah.
And I learned a word, I think it was maybe a couple of years. Have you ever heard of the word sonder?
Sonder? No.
Sonder is when you realize that, a perfect stranger that you cross paths with in the street also has a life probably as fulfilling as yours and as complicated as yours.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a wonderful word.
Sonder. Yeah. Because the world's so big, but yeah, it could be so small.
Yeah, because we all live in our, so to speak, our own bubble, right? And sometimes you're walking down the street and you'll see someone or meet someone and you're like, you think nothing of them. Yeah. And then, one day it just clicks in, wow, that person has a life.
Yeah.
Who knows? They're on their way to who knows what.
Yeah. It's funny. I look at people in cars sometimes and I think that, or just, people's paths cross for a reason, right? Like you and my path crossed for a reason, but it's, people are going through the same thing. Sonder, the word of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great word.
That's
Hashtag Sonder.
hashtag Sonder. I love it. I love it. So you mentioned YouTube too. You listen to a lot of YouTube?
Yeah, for YouTube, I listen to a lot of workout videos. If I'm gonna buy a piece of workout equipment, I'll listen to. I think it's this guy. It's called Garage Gym Reviews.
Okay.
And
I thought you
he's
were gonna
got
say it was like Billy Blanks. Remember him from back in the day? Billy Blanks? He's probably still fit, but no.
I only
Yeah.
remember that one guy. What's his name? The guy in the short shorts and the curly
Richard
hair.
Simmons.
Richard
Good old
Simmons.
Richard Simmons.
Where in the world is Richard Simmons these
I don't know,
days?
is he still alive?
I think he is.
I think he is. Probably somewhere with that fro.
Yeah.
With that fro and the short shorts. God bless America. That's so funny.
Yep.
That is hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I think what you said was interesting, right? Because there's so much information out there, and there's so many different mediums that you can get information, right? So even though visually you're not able to consume stuff, audio you can still listen, and there's more stuff available. Audible, right? Even Audibles, like I love listening to books.
Oh yeah.
I listen to a ton. Like every 2 weeks I try to finish a book. So you have a lot of that, which I think helps you connect, right? Like and gives you, if you think 30 years ago, right, people just had TV.
Well, the level of isolation that blind people particularly had before.
Yeah.
I kind of felt it in the beginning, but I wasn't going to give up because I just don't give up. And so I started looking for ways of getting my daily dose of news and information, and looking up whatever it is, how to do the perfect crunch and things like that.
Yeah.
And there's tons of videos explaining the same thing, right? And so if you don't understand one, you go to the next. And some people are better at explaining than others, and you don't really need the visual aspect of it as long as the audio's there, and whoever's describing does a good job at doing so.
Yeah, and people have gotten better at describing things in shorter time frames, right? Like our attention spans have gotten so small.
Yeah.
That it's like if you don't teach me in a minute and a half, I'm out. You
Oh,
know? It's like so weird, but it's true. I mean, that's the world we live in right now. Where its attention spans are tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny. It's interesting. It's interesting, but it's a good time. At least you have that connection, which is great. Which is amazing. So let's fast forward a little bit, moving forward on the future. Where do you see the business in the next 5 years? I always choose 5 years, right? So like your 5-year vision, goals, where do you see yourself? Where do you see the business? Do you have any goals that you're going for as far as, with yourself personally or with the business?
Well, I think in terms of the businesses, like any business, we have our internal struggles, and always thinking about improving the operation and minimizing the stress. But I think in terms of growth, I personally would like to be at maybe double where we're at now, which is definitely doable. It's just that we have to be able to put all the puzzle pieces together so that they fall right where they're supposed to be, so that we're able to cater to that amount of business.
Yeah.
That's the thing with growth, right? That you have to have the correct back end workings of the company to be able to fulfill those, because you could potentially start getting more business and then your quality is going to go down. And I think that's a terrible thing that happens a lot of the times is growth can be good, but it can also be bad. And so it's kind of a balance that you have to think about, is how much do we want to grow to be able to produce the product that we still feel proud of.
100%, because you can scale, right? Like you can bring on customers, but if you can't give them service, then you're going to lose customers, right? And you have to be able to kind of balance both.
Yeah, I think ultimately your product will also suffer because the quality won't be there. Especially what we do, because everything's so detailed, from selecting materials to finishes to the installation. And sometimes the automation parts that we have to do on some of these doors is complex.
Oh, really?
So
That's interesting.
yeah, it is. It's just because we don't just do your typical overhead garage door. We also do carriage doors. We do accordion doors, bifolding doors. We do lateral sliding garage doors that kind of slide into the sides of your garage.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Those are really cool. They're super expensive, but they are pretty cool.
That's yeah, because you don't do the typical stuff.
No, I'll have to show you a couple of videos of those.
Yeah, no, that's really because it's all custom. It's all different and unique, and you've probably like that industry has changed so much over the last 10, 20 years, right? Like, I mean, it's not your typical just garage door, mom and pop's garage door, so to say.
Yeah, this isn't your door from like the 90s with the raised panels and the funny little windows at the top.
No, hey,
Yeah.
hey, I have one of
You
those.
have one of
garage
those?
doors.
You resent that?
Jeez, yeah, I'm offended by that, Mario. My newly painted horrible door, okay? Jeez. Kim Soto, our door is amazing, okay? We do not need a new garage door. I love those little windows.
Yeah, which ones do you have?
I don't know,
The little arches?
little arches, yeah, they're horrible.
Yeah, those are cute.
Oh man, so that's cool, right? Like I think it's always important to have goals. It's important to say, you know what, I can see us continuing to grow. I know if you continue to do business in the way that you're doing it, right, inherently, like you said, the word of mouth and the organic is going to continue to bless you guys, and your business will continue to grow. And it's always good to like think about that, right? Like, hey, if we doubled up, like, what would that look like? You know, like that would be. We need more space. We need more employees. We need a little bit more systems.
Right.
But again, the good news is you don't have to go and hit Craigslist 80 times a day to do that, right? Like, just by continuing to cater to your clients, continuing to do the right things, do great work, like the business will continue to grow, right? And you're in such a niche market, right? Like, I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I can't imagine there's not as many custom garage door companies as there are banks, right? Like, I'm in the world of banking. There's a bank on every corner.
Right.
You know, my industry is very much diluted, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, we are in a very niche market, as you said. There's only a handful of us, and not all of us are good.
Oh, very true. So true, right? You have to be careful who you choose to
I'm
work
not
with.
naming anyone, but not all of us are good.
That's right, Joe's Garage Door. No, if there's a place called Joe's Garage Door, I did not mean to offend you. I was playing on Joe. Poor
Not
Joe.
really.
Joe's Garage Door is going to listen to this and be like, what the hell, defamation of character? I hope I get that famous one day. Mario, if somebody were to come back here and look at that and be like, I can't believe you defamed my name.
I know, that would be.
That'd be funny. But hey, we live in California. Everybody loves to sue you. So you never
For
know.
anything.
For anything. So, well, you know, Mario, I appreciate you taking some time. I appreciate you sharing your story and some of the struggles and things that you've gone through, right? I think it's you're definitely going to connect with some people out there, and it's great to see how you've overcome adversity and how you continue to fight through every day, right? Because it's an everyday thing, right? For all of us, we're all fighting some sort of adversity every single day. I think your story is definitely larger than most. I think what happened with you is an anomaly, right? And something that you really happened, and you just have had to learn how to live with it. But I don't think it defines who Mario is, right? Like, in talking to you for this time, I realized that there's so much more to you as far as the marketing stuff and some sense of humor and crazy work ethic, right? Like, you might be the second hardest worker I know, Mario. After Joe Soto.
Okay, I'm only second to you.
You're only second to me, which is good. That's pretty good company, right? But again, like, I didn't know that, right? And in talking to you, it's like, to me, your attitude and your work ethic are who you are. Right? You've got a great attitude and you're a dang hard worker, right? The fact that you lost your vision does not define who Mario is.
It never did.
Yeah.
It never did.
And I think that's inspiring for other people who are going through something, whether you've, you know, you have some sort of disability, whether it's your eyesight or you lost a leg or you've an arm, right? Like, people are going through things all the time. And I don't think that that doesn't have to define you.
But you know what, Joe? I think, just whatever you're going through right now, for those listening or watching, is it's not going to be the worst thing that happens to you. So get over it. Just get over it.
Yeah, so true, right? You just got to keep moving forward.
Well, because you go to, we've only been here for a short while, but, there's also other tragedies that happen in, everybody's lives.
Yeah.
And losing my eyesight was not the first tragedy, but probably one of the most impactful, I would say, or at least that's how most people would see it. Very impactful. But there's other traumas that you go through in life, and just when you think you've touched rock bottom, something else happens, and something else happens. So it's how you deal with it that's going to make the difference.
Yes.
And like you're saying, don't let it define you.
Nope, 100%. Well, super cool, Mario. Dynamic Garage Door. Check them out on Instagram. I appreciate your time, and super, super happy to have you on with me today, man.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Big shout out to our sponsor, the Camp Transformation Center, Anaheim, Ontario Ranch. My boy Andrew Cruz will help you with your fitness journey. Check him out.